The transport ship's engines hummed as it approached the Galactic Defense Academy. Through the small porthole, Maya Chen watched the massive station grow larger against the backdrop of stars. The structure was enormous, built like a ring around a small moon, with docking bays that could fit 100 ships her size. She pressed her face closer to the glass, studying the alien architecture. Everything looked sharp and angular, designed by minds that thought differently than humans did. The other passengers on the transport had been chattering excitedly in various alien languages for hours, but Maya had remained silent in her corner seat. "Attention, passengers," the pilot's voice crackled through the speakers, translated automatically into each species' native tongue. "We will be docking at Terminal 7 in 15 minutes. Please prepare for disembarkation." Maya touched the small device clipped to her ear. The universal translator was still new to her, sometimes creating odd pauses as it processed unfamiliar words. She had been practicing with it for months before leaving Earth, but actually hearing alien voices speak was different than the simulations. A tall, blue-skinned Zalani student sitting across from her leaned forward. "First time at the academy?" he asked in accented standard Galactic. His voice was high and musical, like wind chimes. Maya nodded but didn't speak. She had discovered that most aliens expected humans to be chatty and aggressive, always ready to fight or argue. Staying quiet seemed to confuse them, which she found useful. The Zalani student, whose name tag read Kess, tried again. "I heard they finally accepted a human into the program. That must be you." His large silver eyes studied her with obvious curiosity. "My podmate said humans are supposed to be dangerous." "You don't look dangerous," Maya almost smiled at that. She was average height for a human female, with dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail and brown eyes that her grandmother had always said were too serious for someone so young. She wore the standard academy prep uniform, a gray jumpsuit that made everyone look the same regardless of species. "The stories about your kind are fascinating," Kess continued, apparently not bothered by her silence. "They say humans come from a death world where everything tries to kill you. Is that true?" This time Maya did look directly at him. Earth wasn't really a death world by galactic standards, but she understood why aliens thought so. Most species had evolved on planets with stable climates and few predators. They found it hard to believe that humans had spent millions of years competing with creatures that could crush them, outrun them, or poison them. The ship shuddered slightly as the docking clamps engaged. Through the porthole, Maya could see the Academy's main corridor stretching away into the distance. Hundreds of beings moved through the space representing dozens of different species. She recognized some from her preparation materials. The tall, graceful ethers with their translucent skin, the stocky, rock-like granite folk, the insectoid Chitauri with their complex arm movements that served as their primary language. "All passengers, please proceed to the exit ramp," the pilot announced. Maya stood and shouldered her single bag. Everything she owned that mattered was in there. A few changes of clothes, some personal items from home, and her mother's old military tags from her service in the Human Defense Corps. The tags weren't regulation for the Academy, but Maya had hidden them under her shirt anyway. As they filed off the transport, Kess continued talking. "My family has been part of the Galactic Defense Force for generations. My great-grandparent helped design some of the first peacekeeping protocols after the Hive Wars. What about your family?" Maya's jaw tightened slightly. Her mother had died fighting in those same Hive Wars, one of the first humans to serve alongside alien forces. Her father had never talked much about it, except to say that Mom had volunteered for the most dangerous missions because she believed humans needed to prove themselves worthy of joining the galactic community. The corridor they entered was vast, with a ceiling that disappeared into shadows above. The air smelled different than Earth air, cleaner but somehow thinner. Maya's earpiece worked overtime, translating the dozens of conversations happening around them. "New students report to Processing Center Delta," a voice announced over hidden speakers. "Follow the blue guide lights." A line of soft blue lights appeared along the floor, leading deeper into the station. Maya followed them alongside hundreds of other new students, still listening to Kess chatter about Academy history and his excitement about the combat simulations. The processing center was a large, circular room with check-in stations arranged around the perimeter. Each station was designed for different body types and physiologies. Maya found the one marked for carbon-based humanoids and approached the desk. The clerk was a Sindari, one of the most common species in the galaxy. They looked somewhat like tall, thin humans, but with greenish skin and no visible ears. Name and planet of origin? The clerk asked without looking up from her display screen. Maya Chen, Earth? Maya replied quietly. These were the first words she had spoken to anyone since leaving the human transport station 3 days ago. The clerk's head snapped up, her large eyes widening. Human? She typed rapidly on her interface. We weren't expecting... That is, your arrival was noted, but... She cleared her throat. Please proceed to medical for your species-specific health screening. Maya took the data pad the clerk handed her and moved toward the medical section. Behind her, she could hear Kes explaining to other students that he had traveled with the human. His voice filled with excitement as if this made him special somehow. The medical bay was smaller and quieter. A robot scanner examined Maya from head to toe, checking for diseases or biological incompatibilities. The process took only minutes, but she could feel other students staring at her through the transparent walls of the examination chamber. When it was finished, a Zalani medic handed her a small device. This is a biological monitoring patch, he explained. It will track your vital signs during training exercises. Humans have unusual physiological responses to stress, according to our records. We want to ensure your safety. Maya clipped the device to her uniform collar and nodded her thanks. She knew what he really meant. Humans were the only known species that could function effectively while experiencing what other species considered life-threatening levels of stress hormones. It was one of the things that made the galactic community nervous about accepting humans into their military programs. Your dormitory assignment is Delta 7, Level 15, the medic continued. Classes begin tomorrow at 800 station time. Welcome to the academy. Maya took the corridor map he offered and headed for the residential section, aware that conversation stopped as she passed. She had expected this kind of attention, but it still felt strange to be the subject of so much curiosity. Her dormitory room was small but comfortable, with a sleeping area, a study desk, and a small personal hygiene station. The walls were bare metal, but there was a small window that looked out toward the training complexes, where she would spend the next 2 years learning to fight alongside beings from across the galaxy. As she unpacked her few belongings, Maya thought about her mother's final message recorded just before her last mission. Show them what humans can do when we set our minds to something, she had said. But more importantly, show them who we really are underneath all the scary stories. Maya placed her mother's tags on the small shelf beside her bed and sat down to study the class schedule. Tomorrow would begin the real test of whether humans belonged in the galactic community's most elite military academy. She intended to pass that test, no matter what it took. But first, she needed to understand the other species better, and that meant continuing to watch and listen, even if it meant staying silent a little longer. Maya's first morning at the academy began before dawn, station time. The automated wake-up system played a gentle chime at 600, followed by announcements in multiple languages. She had been awake for an hour already, studying the academy handbook on her datapad and trying to memorize the names of different alien species she would be training with. The communal dining hall was enormous, with sections designed for different dietary requirements. Maya found the area marked for omnivorous species and selected items that looked familiar enough to be safe. Most of her breakfast consisted of what appeared to be fruits and a protein cake that tasted vaguely like chicken. She sat alone at a small table, watching the social dynamics around her. The different species naturally clustered together. Zalani students moved in small groups, their musical voices creating a constant background harmony. The granite folk sat together in solid silence, communicating through subtle changes in their rock-like skin patterns. The Chitauri stood while eating, their multiple arms allowing them to consume food while simultaneously gesturing in their complex sign language. Mind if I sit here? Kes appeared beside her table, carrying a tray filled with what looked like liquid nutrients and small glowing fruits. Maya gestured to the empty chair across from her. She had noticed that Kes seemed different from the other Zalani students. While they moved in tight social groups, he often sat at the edges, observing rather than participating in their musical conversations. I've been reading about Earth, Kes said as he settled into his chair. Your planet has over 7 billion humans on it. How do you manage resources with so many people in one place? Maya considered this question while chewing her protein cake. It was actually a thoughtful question. Not just curiosity about human aggression or combat abilities like most aliens asked about. "We share," she said simply. It wasn't entirely true, of course. Humans had spent most of their history fighting over resources, but they had also developed complex systems for cooperation that most alien species found difficult to understand. Kess nodded thoughtfully. "My homeworld has about 50 million Zilani, and we still have resource conflicts in the outer colonies. Perhaps there's something we could learn from human organizational methods." Before Maya could respond, the dining hall's speakers crackled to life. "All first-year students report to Training Complex Alpha at 0800 wear your physical conditioning uniforms and bring water supplies." Maya finished her breakfast quickly and returned to her room to change. The physical conditioning uniform was a form-fitting garment made from some kind of advanced fabric that could regulate temperature and wick away moisture. It felt strange against her skin, almost like wearing liquid metal. Training Complex Alpha turned out to be a massive gymnasium with equipment designed for a dozen different body types. Some machines were clearly meant for the powerful granite folk, while others seemed built for the graceful, long-limbed ethers. In the center of the space stood a raised platform where several instructors waited. Maya counted about 200 first-year students gathering on the main floor. She was the only human present, which she had expected but still found uncomfortable. Even trying to blend in, she stood out simply by being different from every other being in the room. The lead instructor was a Valdris, a species known for their military discipline and strategic thinking. They were humanoid in basic shape but taller and broader than humans, with thick armored skin that looked almost reptilian. This particular Valdris wore the insignia of a combat training specialist. "I am Instructor Thane," the Valdris announced, his voice carrying clearly across the large space without amplification. "For the next 2 years, you will learn to fight alongside beings from dozens of different worlds. Some of you come from peaceful trading species, others from warrior cultures. All of you will be trained to the same standard." Thane's eyes swept across the gathered students, pausing briefly when they found Maya. "The galaxy is not a safe place. The Defense Force exists to protect peaceful worlds from threats both known and unknown. Pirates, raiders, rogue AI systems, and worse things that lurk in the dark between stars. You are here because your worlds believe you have the potential to stand against such threats." He gestured to the equipment around them. "Physical conditioning is the foundation of everything else you will learn. Your body is your most basic weapon and your ultimate survival tool. We will begin with baseline assessments to understand each species' capabilities." The students were divided into groups based on their physical characteristics. Maya found herself classified as a medium-frame bipedal omnivore, along with several other species that shared similar basic body structures. Her group included 2 Sindari, a Korthian who looked like a tall, thin bear, and surprisingly, Kess. Their first test was cardiovascular endurance on machines that adapted to each species' natural movement patterns. Maya's machine resembled a treadmill, but the surface could change texture and angle to simulate different terrain types. "Begin at comfortable pace," announced the testing technician, a small furred creature whose species Maya didn't recognize. "Increase speed every 2 minutes until you reach your maximum sustainable rate." Maya started jogging, settling into an easy rhythm she could maintain for hours if necessary. Around her, the other students began their own tests. The Sindari moved with long, flowing strides that looked almost like dancing. The Korthian's gait was more of a rolling lumber, but steady and powerful. As the test progressed and the speed increased, Maya noticed other students beginning to show signs of fatigue. The Sindari's graceful movements became more labored. The Korthian's breathing grew heavier, but Maya felt like she was just getting warmed up. This was the kind of endurance running she had been doing since she was old enough to keep up with her father on his morning runs. On Earth, humans were persistence hunters. They might not be the fastest or strongest predators, but they could outlast almost anything over long distances. "Interesting," the testing technician murmured, looking at the readouts on Maya's machine. "Your heart rate and stress indicators are remarkably stable." One by one, the other students in her group reached their limits and stepped off their machines. First the Sindari, then the Korthian, and finally Kess, who had been pushing himself harder than Maya thought was wise. Only Maya continued running, her pace still steady and her breathing controlled. The technician exchanged glances with Instructor Thane, who had been moving between groups to observe the testing. Thane approached Maya's machine and studied the display screen showing her vital signs. "How do you feel, Cadet Chen?" Thane asked. "Good," Maya replied, not even slightly out of breath. "I could keep going for a while." Thane's reptilian features didn't show emotion the way human faces did, but Maya thought she detected something like surprise in his posture. "Continue for 5 more minutes at maximum pace," he instructed the technician. The machine's speed increased to what should have been a full sprint for someone of Maya's size. She adjusted her stride and kept pace easily, her heart rate rising only slightly from its previous steady rhythm. Around the gymnasium, other students had stopped their own test to watch the human who apparently couldn't be tired out. When the 5 minutes ended, Maya stepped off the machine feeling like she had just finished a pleasant morning jog. Her uniform's moisture-wicking fabric had kept her dry, and her breathing returned to normal within seconds. "Remarkable," the technician said, examining the data. "Your species maintains efficiency at stress levels that would incapacitate most others." Thane made notes on his datapad. "Next test, strength assessment. Standard weightlifting protocols. Adjusted for body mass." The strength test revealed similar patterns. Maya wasn't the strongest student. That honor went to the granite folk who could lift weights that would crush most other species. But her strength-to-weight ratio was impressive, and more importantly, she could maintain that strength output far longer than anyone expected. During the flexibility test, Maya again performed better than predicted. Humans weren't the most flexible species present, but they were surprisingly adaptable, able to move efficiently in multiple different ways depending on the situation. By the end of the morning session, word had spread throughout the training complex about the human who exceeded expectations on every test. Maya could feel the attention like a weight on her shoulders as she and the other students were dismissed for lunch. As they walked back toward the dining hall, Kess fell into step beside her. "I'm beginning to understand why the galactic community was nervous about accepting humans into the academy," he said quietly. Maya glanced at him. "Because we test well on machines?" "Because your species doesn't seem to have limits the way the rest of us do," Kess replied. "When I reached my maximum on the endurance test, my body was screaming at me to stop." "But you looked like you could have run forever." Maya considered this. It was true that humans had evolved to push through discomfort and pain in ways that many other species found disturbing. What felt normal to her, the ability to function while stressed, to continue moving when tired, to adapt quickly to new challenges, apparently seemed superhuman to beings who had evolved on more peaceful worlds. "My grandmother used to say that humans are built for surviving bad days," Maya said finally. "Maybe?" The afternoon brought Maya's first tactical combat class. Training Complex Beta was smaller than the gymnasium, but far more intimidating. The walls were lined with weapons from dozens of different worlds, and the floor was marked with practice circles for various combat disciplines. Students filed in wearing protective gear suited to their species. Maya's gear included a flexible armor vest and padded guards for her joints. Everything felt heavier than it looked, made from materials designed to absorb energy weapons and blunt force trauma. The instructor waiting for them was not the calm, professional Valdris from the morning. Commander Vex was a Taurian, a species known for their aggressive nature and military traditions. Taurians looked like humanoid wolves with thick fur, pointed ears, and teeth designed for tearing. They were one of the few species in the galaxy that had evolved as pure carnivores, and their culture reflected that predatory heritage. "Combat is the art of surviving when everything else has failed," Vex announced, his growling voice filled with authority. "Peace is maintained through the threat of superior violence. Today we begin learning how to be that threat." Maya watched as Vex demonstrated basic striking techniques. His movements were fast and brutal, designed to disable opponents quickly. The Taurian military philosophy emphasized overwhelming aggression and decisive action. "Pair off with someone of similar size," Vex commanded. "We will start with basic defensive postures." Maya found herself partnered with a Sindari student named Zeph. He was taller than her but built lighter, with the typical graceful movements of his species. His large eyes showed nervousness as they faced each other in one of the practice circles. "I've never actually fought anyone before," Zeph admitted quietly. "My people are merchants and explorers, not warriors." "That's okay," Maya replied. "Most of this is about learning to stay calm under pressure." Vex moved between the pairs, correcting stances and demonstrating proper defensive positions. When he reached Maya and Zeph, he stopped and studied them both for a long moment. Interesting, Vex said, his wolfish features showing what might have been amusement. The human and the traitor. Tell me, Cadet Chen, what combat training has your species provided you? Maya straightened her shoulders. Basic self-defense, sir. Nothing formal. Basic self-defense, Vex repeated, his tone suggesting he found this inadequate. And yet your species has a reputation as warriors. How do you explain this contradiction? Maya felt the attention of nearby students focus on their conversation. This was clearly some kind of test, though she wasn't sure what answer Vex was looking for. Humans fight when we have to, sir, she said carefully, but most of us prefer not to. Vex's laugh was more like a bark. Prefer not to fight? Your people conquered an entire planet, filled with predators larger and stronger than yourselves. Your military history includes wars that lasted for years, conflicts that consumed entire continents, and you prefer not to fight? Maya's jaw tightened. She could feel the weight of her mother's tags under her uniform, a reminder of the price humans had paid to earn their place in the galactic community. We fight when it matters, sir, she said, her voice steady despite the growing tension. When there's something worth protecting. Something worth protecting, Vex mused. He gestured to Zeph. Cadet Zeph here comes from a peaceful species. They have no natural weapons, no warrior culture, no history of conquest. Yet he is here trying to learn to fight. What is he protecting? His people's right to explore and trade freely, Maya answered. The same thing we're all here to protect. Vex circled around them slowly like a predator evaluating prey. Noble sentiments. But fighting for principles is very different from fighting for survival. Your partner here would die in seconds against a real threat. Could you protect him? Maya glanced at Zeph, who was clearly uncomfortable being used as an example in this discussion. I would try, sir. You would try, Vex repeated. How fortunate for him that humans are supposedly such effective warriors. Demonstrate your basic self-defense, Cadet Chen. Show us these skills that conquered a death world. Maya realized this was becoming more than a simple class demonstration. Vex was pushing her, testing something specific about humans or about her personally. She could feel the weight of dozens of alien eyes watching her. Against Cadet Zeph, sir? Maya asked. Against me, Vex said, stepping into the practice circle. A murmur went through the class. Several students moved back to give them more room. Maya could see concern on Kess's face from across the room, and even some of the more aggressive species looked worried about this matchup. Sir, I don't think, Maya began. Are you refusing a direct order from your instructor? Vex interrupted. Maya shook her head and moved to the center of the circle. Vex was nearly twice her weight, with natural weapons and reflexes that had been honed by millions of years of predatory evolution. She had trained in basic martial arts on Earth, but nothing that would help her against something like this. Begin with a simple defensive stance, Vex instructed. I will attack slowly and you will demonstrate how humans protect themselves. Maya fell into a basic defensive posture, hands up and weight balanced. Vex moved toward her with deliberate slowness, telegraphing his movements so she could respond. His first attack was a simple grab for her shoulder. Maya stepped aside and deflected his arm, using his momentum to move him past her. It was a textbook defensive move, exactly the kind of thing taught in basic self-defense classes. Adequate, Vex said. Now faster. His next attack came quicker, a sweeping motion with his clawed hand. Maya ducked under it and backed away, maintaining distance between them. She was using her smaller size and mobility to avoid his reach, another basic principle of fighting larger opponents. Still adequate, Vex growled. But avoiding conflict is not the same as winning it. Show me how humans attack. Maya hesitated. Everything about this felt wrong. Vex was clearly superior in every physical category, and she was being asked to demonstrate offensive techniques against a trained military instructor from a warrior species. Sir, with respect, this doesn't seem like a fair demonstration, Maya said. Vex's ears flattened against his skull, a sign of irritation in Taurian body language. Fair? You think combat is fair, Cadet Chen? Do you think the pirates and raiders threatening peaceful worlds will fight fairly? He moved faster this time, not quite full speed but far quicker than before. Maya barely managed to avoid his grab, stumbling slightly as she twisted away. Your reputation for violence is clearly exaggerated, Vex said loudly enough for the entire class to hear. Perhaps humans are only dangerous to creatures smaller and weaker than themselves. Against a real predator, you seem quite helpless. Maya felt heat rising in her cheeks. She understood now what this was about. Vex was testing whether humans deserved their fearsome reputation, and he was doing it publicly to make a point about the hierarchy of species in the Academy. "Again," Vex commanded. "Attack me as if you mean it." Maya looked around the circle of watching students. She could see some of them nodding along with Vex's assessment, beginning to believe that humans were less impressive than the stories suggested. Others looked concerned about where this demonstration was heading. "I don't want to hurt you, sir," Maya said quietly. Vex's laughter was genuinely amused this time. "Hurt me? Cadet Chen, I am a Taurian combat instructor with 15 years of military experience. You are a human child who has been at this academy for exactly 1 day. The concern should run in the opposite direction." Something cold settled in Maya's stomach. She recognized the feeling from stories her father had told about her mother's missions. It was the moment when being polite and reasonable stopped working, when the only choice left was to act. "Sir," Maya said, her voice gaining an edge that hadn't been there before, "I really don't think this is a good idea." "What I think," Vex said, moving closer, "is that your species has been trading on a reputation you don't deserve. Time to see what humans are really made of." He lunged forward faster than he had moved before, but still holding back enough to avoid seriously injuring her. Maya stepped into the attack instead of away from it, getting inside his reach where his size advantage meant less. Her elbow struck his solar plexus with precise force, just enough to surprise him and drive the air from his lungs. As he bent forward slightly, Maya's knee came up toward his face, stopping just short of contact. The entire sequence took less than 2 seconds. Maya stepped back immediately, her hands raised in a non-threatening gesture. But the damage was done. Vex stood frozen in place, realizing that if Maya had followed through on her movements, he would have been unconscious on the floor. The training complex fell completely silent. Maya could hear her own heartbeat and the sound of air recycling systems in the walls. Every student in the room was staring at her with expressions ranging from shock to fear. Vex straightened slowly, his hand moving unconsciously to his throat where Maya's knee had stopped inches away from crushing his windpipe. "Interesting," he said finally, his voice rougher than before. Class dismissed. Cadet Chen remained behind. As the other students filed out of the training complex, Maya stood alone in the practice circle, wondering if she had just made the biggest mistake of her academy career. After the other students left, Maya stood alone in the training circle with Commander Vex. The silence stretched between them, heavy with tension. Vex studied her with the intense focus of a predator trying to understand prey that had just shown unexpected fangs. "That was not basic self-defense," Vex said finally. Maya kept her hands at her sides, her posture respectful but ready. "No, sir, it wasn't. You deliberately misled me about your training background. You asked about formal combat training, sir. I told you the truth. What I showed you isn't something I learned in a class." Vex began circling her again, but this time his movement was more cautious. "Then where did you learn to fight like that?" Maya considered how to answer. The truth was complicated, tied up in human history and psychology that most aliens found difficult to understand. "My father was a police officer on Earth," she said. "He taught me that sometimes the only way to stop someone from hurting you or others is to hurt them first. But he also taught me that you only use as much force as necessary. And you determined that rendering me unconscious was necessary?" "I determined that showing you I could was necessary," Maya replied. "You weren't going to stop testing me until you understood what you were dealing with." Vex's ears flicked back and forth, a sign of deep thought in Taurian body language. "You could have killed me in that exchange." "Yes, sir. But you chose not to." "Yes, sir." "Why?" Maya met his gaze directly. "Because you're not my enemy. You're an instructor trying to understand your students' capabilities. I showed you mine. Now you know." Vex stopped pacing and faced her fully. "What I know is that you held back during our entire demonstration, right up until the final moment. You made me believe you were weak and untrained. I am untrained, sir, by military standards, but not weak. No, sir, not weak." Vex was quiet for a long moment, processing what had happened. Maya could see him reconsidering everything he thought. He knew about humans and their place in the galactic community. "Your species has been applying for academy admission for over a decade," Vex said. The review board expressed concerns about human aggression and unpredictability. Some members argued that humans were too dangerous to train alongside other species. Maya nodded. She knew about the debates in the Galactic Council, the fears that humans might turn their military training against their allies someday. Other board members argued that humans were primitives from a backwards world, too unsophisticated for advanced military training. Vex continued. The compromise was to accept one human student as a test case. I know, sir. What you probably don't know is that I was one of the instructors who argued against human admission. Maya felt a chill run through her. This explained the aggressive testing, the public demonstration designed to humiliate her. I believed your species was either too dangerous or too weak to belong here, Vex said. Today you have shown me that I was wrong about humans being weak. The question remains whether you are too dangerous. Sir, with respect, every species here is dangerous in their own way, Maya said. The granite folk could crush most of us without effort. The ethers have natural telepathic abilities that could drive other species insane. The Chitauri produce toxins that could kill half the student body. Those are natural evolutionary advantages, Vex countered. What you demonstrated was tactical thinking combined with lethal capability. You assessed my weaknesses and exploited them in seconds. That's what combat training is supposed to teach, Maya pointed out. Vex's laugh was short and bitter. Most students take months to learn what you demonstrated instinctively, and you claim to be untrained. Maya thought about her childhood on Earth, the games that human children played that would terrify most alien species. Tag was basically practice for pursuit and evasion. Hide and seek taught stealth and ambush tactics. Even playground fights were learning experiences in reading opponents and managing aggression. Humans don't think of it as training, she said. It's just how we grow up. Playing war games from childhood, Vex mused. Learning to fight before you can properly walk. No wonder the council was concerned. We also learn to cooperate, to share resources, to care for those weaker than ourselves, Maya said. Human children who are cruel to others get punished and taught better. We don't raise pure warriors, sir. We raise people who can become warriors when necessary. Vex considered this. And you believe it's necessary now? I believe the galaxy is a dangerous place, and peaceful species need protection, Maya replied. That's why I'm here. To protect others. Yes, sir. Even those who might see you as a threat? Maya thought about Kes and Zeph, about the other students who had looked at her with growing fear after the demonstration. Especially them. Vex made notes on his data pad, his expression unreadable. Report to my office at 0600 tomorrow morning. We're going to continue your evaluation under more controlled conditions. Yes, sir. And Cadet Chen? Sir? In the future, when I ask about your capabilities, I expect complete honesty. Deception has no place in military training. Maya nodded. Understood, sir. As she left the training complex, Maya found Kes waiting for her in the corridor outside. His silver eyes were wide with concern, and something that might have been fear. Are you in trouble? He asked as they walked toward the residential section. I don't know yet, Maya replied honestly. What you did in there, that was incredible. And terrifying. Maya glanced at him. I didn't hurt him. I know. That's what made it terrifying. Kes stopped walking and turned to face her. You could have killed him, couldn't you? Our combat instructor, a trained Taurian warrior, and you could have ended him in 2 seconds. Maybe. I don't know for sure. But you think so? Maya sighed. Kes, every species has natural advantages. Yours has enhanced hearing and vocal abilities. Mine has adaptability. That's what you call it? Adaptability? What would you call it? Kes was quiet for a moment. On my world, we have stories about the old days before we developed civilization. There were predators that hunted my people, creatures that were faster and stronger than us. But they went extinct, and we survived. How? We learned to think ahead, to plan, to work together. But mostly, we learned to hide. Kess looked at Maya with an expression she couldn't quite read. Your species never learned to hide, did they? We learned other things instead. They reached the residential section, where groups of students were gathered in common areas discussing the day's training. Maya noticed that conversation stopped when she passed and students moved slightly away from her. They're afraid of me now, Maya observed. Can you blame them? Kess asked. Most of us have never seen anything like what you did today. Combat. To us is about technology, strategy, overwhelming firepower. The idea of defeating an opponent with just your body, your mind, it's alien to us. Maya paused at the entrance to her dormitory corridor. Is that going to be a problem? I don't know, Kess admitted. Some students are already talking about requesting transfers to different training groups. Others want to know if all humans fight like you do. What did you tell them? That I don't know anything about humans except that they apparently don't say much. Kess smiled slightly. You've spoken more words to me today than in all our previous conversations combined. Maya realized he was right. The confrontation with Vex had forced her out of her planned silence, made her defend not just herself, but her entire species. Maybe it's time I started talking more, she said. Maybe. But Maya. Kess used her first name for the first time. Be careful what you say, and be even more careful what you do. There are people here who are looking for reasons to prove that humans don't belong in the academy. As Maya entered her dormitory room, she thought about Kess's warning. She had come to the academy planning to prove that humans could fit in, that they could be trusted with advanced military training. Instead, her first real day had marked her as something dangerous and unpredictable. She sat on her narrow bed and pulled out her data pad to review the next day's schedule. Advanced combat techniques, strategic thinking, and weapons training. All classes where her human instincts might be seen as advantages or threats depending on how she handled them. Maya touched her mother's tags through her uniform. Her mother had died, proving that humans could fight alongside aliens for common goals. Now Maya had to prove that humans could do more than just fight. She had to show that they could be trusted not to. The question was whether she could do that while still being true to what humans actually were. Maya arrived at Commander Vex's office at exactly 0600 the next morning. The space was smaller than she had expected, with walls covered in weapons and battle trophies from across the galaxy. Behind Vex's desk hung the banner of the Taurian Ninth Fleet, the unit he had served with before becoming an instructor. Sit, Vex commanded without looking up from his data screen. Maya took the chair across from his desk and waited. She had learned from her father that sometimes silence was the best strategy when dealing with authority figures who were trying to make decisions about you. I spent most of last night reviewing your species' military history, Vex said finally. Fascinating reading. In 3,000 years of recorded galactic history, no species has spent as much time fighting itself as humans have. We've had our conflicts, Maya agreed carefully. Conflicts. Vex turned his screen around so she could see it. Over 400 major wars in the last 2 millennia alone. Your people have developed weapons capable of destroying entire planets, and you've actually used them against each other. Maya looked at the data displayed on the screen. It showed a timeline of human warfare, with red markers indicating major conflicts and casualty estimates that reached into the hundreds of millions. We've also had long periods of peace, she pointed out. The last 50 years have been the most peaceful in human history. Because you finally had external threats to focus on, Vex said. Pirates, raiders, the hive incursions. Your species seems to require enemies to function properly. Maya felt a flash of anger but kept her voice level. That's not true, sir. We're capable of cooperation when we have common goals. Are you? Or do you simply redirect your aggression toward approved targets? Vex stood and moved to the wall display showing various weapon systems. Tell me, Cadet Chen, what is the most dangerous predator on your homeworld? Maya considered the question. That depends on the environment, sir. In the oceans, probably the great white shark. On land, maybe the polar bear or certain big cats. And yet your species conquered all of these environments and drove most large predators to near extinction. How? Technology, cooperation, planning ahead. And overwhelming violence when necessary, Vex added. Your species doesn't just defeat predators, you eliminate them entirely. Very thorough. Maya was beginning to understand where this conversation was heading. Sir, humans have also spent enormous resources protecting endangered species and preserving environments. We're not just destroyers. No, you're much more complex than simple destroyers, Vex agreed. That's what makes you potentially dangerous to the galactic community. A purely violent species would be easy to contain or avoid, but humans, you're violent when it serves your purposes, cooperative when that serves them, and you're intelligent enough to switch between those modes as needed. Isn't adaptability a good thing in military personnel? Vex turned back to face her. That depends on whether you can be trusted to adapt in the right direction. He returned to his chair and leaned forward. I'm going to give you a scenario, Cadet Chen. Consider it carefully before answering. Maya nodded. You're leading a mixed-species unit on a mission to evacuate civilians from a colony under attack by raiders. Your orders are to avoid engagement and focus on extraction. But during the evacuation, you discover that the raiders are using child hostages as human shields. Your unit could defeat the raiders, but doing so would require lethal force against beings who are technically sentient, even if they're criminals. What do you do? Maya thought about the scenario. It was clearly designed to test whether humans would follow orders or act on their protective instincts. I would attempt to negotiate for the release of the hostages first, she said. If that failed, I would try to find a tactical solution that minimized casualties while still protecting the innocent. And if there was no tactical solution, if the only choice was between following orders to withdraw and saving the children, Maya met his gaze. I would save the children, even if it meant disobeying direct orders. Yes, sir. Even if it risked the lives of your unit members? Maya hesitated. This was the heart of the test. I would discuss it with my unit first. If they agreed with the mission, we would proceed. If not, I would attempt the rescue myself. Alone against superior numbers, if necessary. Vex made notes on his datapad. And you see nothing wrong with a subordinate deciding that their personal moral code supersedes military command structure? I see something wrong with a command structure that would order someone to abandon innocent children to save themselves, Maya replied. Even if those orders came from superior officers with access to information you don't have? Even if your rescue attempt might compromise a larger strategic objective? Maya was quiet for a long moment. She understood the trap Vex was setting. He wanted her to either admit that humans couldn't follow orders, or to agree to abandon innocents to maintain military discipline. Sir, can I ask you a question? Vex's ears flicked forward. Go ahead. Why did you become a military instructor instead of staying in active service? I fail to see how that's relevant. You must have been good at following orders to reach your rank. But now you're here, teaching young people from dozens of different species to work together. That doesn't seem like something that would happen naturally for a pure warrior culture like the Taurians. Vex's eyes narrowed. Your point? My point is that every species here has adapted beyond their original nature to serve in a multi-species force. Maybe the question isn't whether humans can follow orders, but whether the orders we're given are worth following. Careful, Cadet Chen. That sounds very close to advocating insubordination. I'm advocating for military leaders who understand that good soldiers think for themselves, Maya said. Otherwise, you're not training warriors, you're training weapons. Vex was quiet for several minutes, studying her with an expression she couldn't read. Finally, he spoke. There will be a special training exercise tomorrow afternoon. Advanced combat scenarios, mixed species teams, high-stress environment. You'll be participating. Yes, sir. The other instructors will be watching your performance closely. This exercise will largely determine whether humans continue to be welcome at the academy. Maya felt the weight of that responsibility settle on her shoulders. Understood, sir. One more thing. Vex's voice carried a warning. Some of the students scheduled for tomorrow's exercise have requested transfers to avoid being placed on your team. They're concerned about training with someone they consider unpredictable. How many students? About half of your year group. Maya's stomach dropped. She had known that her demonstration with Vex had frightened some students, but she hadn't realized how widespread the fear had become. However, Vex continued, an equal number have specifically requested to be placed on your team. They want to see what humans are capable of when properly motivated. What kind of exercise is this, sir? Vex's expression might have been a smile if Taurians could smile. The kind that will give you a chance to show whether humans fight for themselves or for others. Dismissed. As Maya left Vex's office, she realized that tomorrow's exercise would be more than just another training session. It would be a test of everything humans claim to represent, observed by instructors who would decide the future of human participation in galactic military forces. She had one day to prepare for the most important exam of her life, and she still didn't know what the test would involve. But she did know one thing: whatever happened tomorrow, she couldn't afford to hold back the way she had been. If humans were going to be judged, they deserved to be judged for what they actually were, not for what they pretended to be. The question was whether the galaxy was ready for that truth. The special training exercise took place in Complex Gamma, a facility Maya had never seen before. The space was enormous, designed to simulate different planetary environments. She could see sections that looked like Arctic tundra, dense jungle, rocky desert, and even what appeared to be the interior of a damaged space station. Maya stood with her assigned team in the preparation area, studying the other students who had volunteered to work with her. Kess was there, along with Zeph the Sindari trader and 3 others she didn't know well. Thorn, a young granite folk whose rocky skin gleamed under the artificial lights. Syrah, an ether whose translucent features seemed to shimmer with nervous energy. And Bex, a Chitauri whose compound eyes reflected the room like a kaleidoscope. Mixed group, observed Thorn, his voice carrying the deep rumble typical of his species. Not much combat experience between us. That's probably intentional, Maya said. This isn't just about fighting. It's about working together. Commander Vex appeared on the observation platform above them, along with several other instructors Maya recognized and a few she didn't. One of them appeared to be a high-ranking officer based on the insignia, possibly from Academy Command. "Attention all teams," Vex announced. "Today's exercise simulates a rescue mission on a hostile world. Intelligence reports indicate that a research outpost has lost contact with Command. Your objectives are threefold: locate and extract any survivors, secure valuable research data, and neutralize any threats to the surrounding civilian population." Maya counted 6 teams of 6 students each. Her team had been designated Team 4, and she noticed they were the only team with such diversity in species representation. The other teams were more homogeneous, probably by design. The simulation environment contains unknown hostiles, environmental hazards, and time-sensitive challenges, Vex continued. You have 4 hours to complete all objectives. Teams will be evaluated on mission success, casualty prevention, and tactical effectiveness. Syrah raised one delicate hand. What kind of hostiles should we expect? Unknown, replied one of the other instructors, a severe-looking Valdris. That's what makes them hostile. Vex gestured toward the entry points. Teams will enter at different locations and must navigate to the research outpost independently. Communication between teams is possible but not guaranteed. Begin preparation. Maya gathered her team in a circle. Okay, let's think about this. We have diverse abilities, which could be an advantage if we use them right. What are you thinking? Kess asked. Thorn, your people are nearly indestructible and can sense vibrations through solid matter. You're our point guard in underground reconnaissance. Maya turned to the ether. Syrah, your species has limited telepathic abilities. Can you sense other minds at a distance? Syrah nodded hesitantly. Short range only, and it's not very precise. That's still early warning for ambushes. Maya looked at Vex. Chitauri have natural toxins and can squeeze through spaces the rest of us can't. Plus your compound eyes give you better peripheral vision and enhanced pattern recognition, Vex added, his voice carrying the clicking undertones of his species. I can spot things that don't belong in an environment. Kess, your hearing is better than the rest of ours, and Zeph. Maya paused, thinking about the nervous Sindari. Zeph, your people are traders. You understand logistics and resource management better than anyone. I'm not a fighter, Zeph said quietly. We're not here to fight, Maya replied. We're here to rescue people and complete a mission. That takes more than fighting. They were given basic equipment, energy weapons, medical supplies, and communication devices. Maya noticed that the weapons were set to training levels that would cause pain and temporary incapacitation rather than actual injury. Entry point Delta, announced a technician. Team 4, you're cleared for insertion. They entered through what appeared to be a cave system on the edge of the simulated environment. Maya let Thorn take the lead, using his natural ability to sense movement through rock and metal. The cave opened into a valley filled with strange, twisted vegetation under an artificial orange sky. I'm detecting vibrations from multiple sources, Thorne reported. Large movements to the north, smaller ones scattered throughout the area. Kess? Maya asked. The Zilani closed his eyes and concentrated. I can hear machinery? And something that might be breathing, but the pattern is wrong for any species I know. Maya pulled out her scanner and studied the topographical data. The research outpost is about 2 kilometers northeast. There's a settlement between us and the target. Should we go around it? Zeph asked. Before Maya could answer, Sierra suddenly stiffened. Mines approaching. Multiple contacts. Moving fast from the east. Through the strange vegetation came shapes that Maya's brain initially refused to process. They looked like a cross between insects and machines, with metallic carapaces and too many legs that moved in perfect synchronization. Their eyes glowed with artificial light, and the sounds they made were electronic clicks and whirs. Robotic hostiles, Maya announced. Defensive positions. The team spread out behind cover as the machines approached. Maya counted at least a dozen of them, moving in a coordinated pattern that suggested hive mind intelligence. They're herding us toward the settlement, Bex observed, his compound eyes tracking multiple targets simultaneously. Maya realized he was right. The machines weren't attacking directly, but were positioning themselves to force the team to move in a specific direction. It's a trap, she said. The settlement probably has more of them waiting. So what do we do? Kess asked. Maya studied the terrain, her mind automatically calculating angles, distances, and timing. This was the kind of tactical thinking that came naturally to humans. Pattern recognition combined with adaptive planning. Thorne, can you collapse part of the cave system to create a distraction? Probably. Why? Because we're not going to play their game. Maya pointed to a rocky ridge that would take them around both the machines and the settlement. If they're trying to funnel us, we'll go where they don't expect. That route will take longer, Zeph pointed out. Maybe, but it keeps us in control of the situation. As Thorne created a minor cave-in that sent the robotic creatures investigating the noise, Team 4 slipped away toward the ridge. Maya found herself naturally taking point, her human instincts for terrain navigation and threat assessment proving valuable in the alien environment. They made good time across the ridge, avoiding 2 more groups of hostile machines and discovering what appeared to be sensor equipment hidden among the rocks. Someone's been watching this area, Bex noted, examining one of the devices with his enhanced pattern recognition. These sensors are placed to monitor the main approaches to the settlement, which means whatever happened here was planned, Maya said. This isn't a random attack. When they finally reached the research outpost, they found it apparently deserted but intact. Maya approached the main building cautiously, every instinct warning her that something was wrong. Sierra, are you sensing any minds in there? The ether concentrated for a moment. Yes, but they're strange, fuzzy, like they're not entirely conscious. Maya made a decision that would have seemed reckless to most other species but felt natural to her human mind. I'm going in first. If something happens to me, complete the mission and get out. Maya, that's not... Kess started. That's an order, Maya said, using the command voice her father had taught her. Humans are expendable. The mission isn't. She entered the building alone, moving through corridors that showed signs of recent occupation but no obvious violence. The research data was exactly where the mission briefing had indicated it would be, which felt far too convenient. In the main laboratory, she found them, 3 researchers from different species, alive but sitting motionless with blank expressions on their faces. Some kind of neural interface devices were attached to their heads, pulsing with soft light. Maya was studying the devices when she heard the mechanical clicking behind her. She turned to find one of the robotic creatures blocking the doorway. But this one was different, larger, with more sophisticated appendages and what appeared to be communication equipment. Fascinating, the machine said in perfectly synthesized standard galactic. A human. We have studied your species extensively through galactic databases. You are known for your aggression and unpredictability. Let me guess, Maya said, not moving toward her weapon. You're testing us to see how we respond to threats. Correct. This entire exercise has been designed to evaluate species-specific reactions to crisis scenarios. Most teams have responded predictably. The Taurians attacked immediately. The Zilani attempted negotiation. The Granite folk tried to outlast the threat. And what have you learned about humans? The machine tilted its head in an oddly organic gesture. That human unpredictability extends beyond combat situations. You are the first team to avoid our control mechanisms entirely. Maya smiled. We don't like being hurted. Indeed. However, the test is not complete. You must choose. Take the research data and leave these individuals to their fate, or attempt a rescue that will almost certainly result in casualties among your team members. Maya looked at the unconscious researchers, then back at the machine. There's a third option. Explain. I complete the mission and save everyone. Maya's voice carried absolute to certainty, because that's what humans do when the stakes are real. The machine's electronic sounds might have been laughter. Impossible. The neural interfaces cannot be safely removed without specialized equipment you do not possess. Maya pulled out her communication device. Team 4, I need Bex in here now. And Thorn, I need you to be ready to bring down this building on my signal. Maya, what are you doing? Kess's voice crackled through the comm. Something incredibly stupid or incredibly smart. I haven't decided which yet. When Bex arrived, Maya explained what she needed. The Chitauri's compound eyes studied the neural interfaces with the pattern recognition that had evolved to help his species navigate complex social hierarchies. I can see the control pathways, Bex said finally. But disrupting them will require precise timing and might cause neural feedback. How precise? Within microseconds, Maya nodded. Do it. But if I'm wrong, then we'll deal with the consequences. Maya looked at the robotic observer. Human unpredictability includes the willingness to take calculated risks for the benefit of others. Add that to your database. What happened next required split-second timing and absolute trust between team members. Bex used his natural toxins to disrupt the electronic components of the neural interfaces, while Maya provided covering fire against additional machines that tried to intervene. Thorn's controlled collapse of part of the building created enough chaos to cover their escape with all 3 researchers. When they emerged from the simulation 4 hours later, Maya found Commander Vex and the other instructors waiting for them. The expressions on their faces were unreadable. Interesting approach, Cadet Chen, Vex said. You completed all 3 objectives with 0 casualties and acquired additional intelligence about the hostile force. Yes, sir. You also ignored several direct orders, took unnecessary risks, and demonstrated exactly the kind of unpredictable behavior that concerns the review board. Maya straightened her shoulders. Yes, sir. I did. Vex studied her for a long moment. Would you do it again? Every time, sir. For the first time since Maya had met him, Commander Vex's expression showed something that might have been approval. Dismissed, Cadet. We'll have the results of your evaluation soon. As Team 4 left the training complex, Kess fell into step beside Maya. That was either the bravest thing I've ever seen or the most foolish. Maybe both, Maya agreed. But at least now they know what they're getting if they accept humans into the academy. And what's that? Maya thought about her mother's sacrifice, about her father's lessons, about everything that had brought her to this moment. Species that don't give up on people, she said. Even when it would be easier to. 3 days passed before Maya received the summons to report to the Academy Command Center. She had spent those days attending regular classes, but the atmosphere had changed dramatically. Students who had previously avoided her now approached with questions about human tactics and philosophy. Others maintained their distance but watched her with what appeared to be respect rather than fear. The command center was located in the highest section of the Academy station, with transparent walls that provided a spectacular view of the surrounding stars. Maya had never been in this part of the facility before, and the grandeur of it was slightly intimidating. She was shown into a conference room where 5 beings sat around a curved table. Commander Vex was there, along with the Academy Commandant, and 3 others she recognized as senior administrators from different departments. Cadet Chen, please be seated, said the Commandant, an elderly ether whose translucent features showed the wisdom lines of advanced age. We have completed our evaluation of your performance and need to discuss the implications for human participation in Academy programs. Maya took the indicated chair, her hands folded in her lap and her expression carefully neutral. She had learned from her father that important meetings often went better when you listened first and spoke only when necessary. Your tactical performance during the special exercise was exceptional, continued the Commandant. You demonstrated strategic thinking, team coordination, and mission adaptability that exceeded expectations for a first-year student. Thank you, sir. However, interjected one of the administrators, a Valdris with severe features, your methods were highly irregular. You ignored established protocols, took unauthorized risks, and displayed the kind of independent thinking that could be problematic in a military command structure. Maya nodded, but didn't respond immediately. She could see where this conversation was heading. The question before us, said the Commandant, is whether these traits make humans valuable additions to galactic military forces or dangerous wildcards who cannot be trusted to follow orders. Commander Vex leaned forward. Cadet Chen, you've been silent for most of your time at the Academy. Now would be an appropriate time to speak on behalf of your species. Maya took a breath and gathered her thoughts. This was the moment she had been preparing for since leaving Earth. Respectfully, sir, I think you're asking the wrong question, she said. The Valdris administrator's eyebrows rose. Explain. You want to know if humans can be trusted to follow orders, but the real question is whether the orders we're given are worth following. Maya met each of their gazes in turn. Every species in the galaxy has natural advantages. Some are stronger, some are faster, some are more intelligent. Humans have something different. Which is? Asked the Commandant. We refuse to accept that a situation is impossible, Maya said. When other species see a problem with two bad choices, humans look for a third option. When conventional tactics fail, we improvise. When the mission seems hopeless, we find a way to complete it anyway. That could also be described as recklessness, the Valdris pointed out. It could, Maya agreed, but it could also be described as hope. She stood up and moved to the transparent wall, looking out at the stars. My mother died in the Hive Wars, fighting alongside beings from a dozen different species. She volunteered for the most dangerous missions because she believed that humans had something unique to contribute to galactic security. And what was that? Commander Vex asked. Maya turned back to face them. The willingness to sacrifice everything for people we've never met, simply because it's the right thing to do. The room was quiet for a moment. Maya could see the administrators exchanging glances, weighing her words against their previous concerns about human unpredictability. There's something else you should know, Maya continued. During the special exercise, my team wasn't just trying to complete the mission. We were trying to prove that different species can work together effectively despite our differences. How so? Asked the Commandant. Thorn's people are natural individualists, but he trusted my tactical decisions. Syrah's species values consensus, but she accepted my authority when quick decisions were needed. Kess comes from a culture that prizes harmony, but he was willing to engage in combat to protect others. Vex's people are typically non-confrontational, but he took personal risks to save strangers. Maya paused, making sure she had their attention. That's what humans bring to the galactic community. We don't just adapt to circumstances, we inspire others to exceed their own limitations. The Valdris administrator looked skeptical. And you believe this makes up for your species' tendency toward insubordination? I believe it makes insubordination irrelevant, Maya replied. If you give humans missions we can believe in, working, alongside people we care about, we'll accomplish things that should be impossible. If you try to turn us into mindless weapons, you'll be disappointed. Commander Vex made notes on his data pad. And if the galactic community isn't ready for that kind of partnership? Maya felt a familiar weight settle in her chest, the same feeling she had experienced when she first learned about her mother's death. Then humans will continue to protect ourselves and our allies independently, but we won't stop trying to build something better. The Commandant exchanged a long look with the other administrators. Some kind of silent communication passed between them, the result of decades of working together. Cadet Chen, the Commandant said finally, the Academy Review Board has reached a decision regarding human participation in our programs. Maya straightened her shoulders and prepared to hear that her species had been rejected. Effective immediately, we are expanding human enrollment to include 5 additional students per year, the Commandant announced. Furthermore, you are being promoted to squad leader for your year group, with responsibility for integrating human tactical approaches into standard academy training. Maya blinked, not sure she had heard correctly. Sir? Your performance has convinced us that humans offer capabilities we didn't know we needed, the Commandant explained. The willingness to find unconventional solutions, to inspire others to exceed expectations, and to take personal responsibility for mission success regardless of personal cost. Commander Vex stood up. There will be conditions, of course. Human students will undergo additional evaluation periods and will be paired with experienced mentors from other species. We want to encourage human adaptability while ensuring integration with existing military doctrine. Understood, sir, Maya said, though she was still processing the implications of what she had just heard. There's one more thing, the Valdris administrator said. Your team from the special exercise has requested to continue working together as a permanent unit. This is highly unusual for first-year students, but their performance metrics support the request. Maya felt a smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. I think they've learned something about human approaches to teamwork. Indeed, said the Commandant. Dismissed, Squad Leader Chen. Your new responsibilities begin tomorrow. As Maya left the command center, she found Kess waiting for her in the corridor outside. His musical voice carried excitement as he spoke. I heard the news through the Academy Communication Network, he said. Congratulations on your promotion. Though I have to ask, does this mean you're going to start talking more? Maya laughed, feeling a lightness in her chest she hadn't experienced since arriving at the Academy. I think I've been quiet long enough. Good, Kess said as they walked toward the residential section. Because Thorn, Syra, Bex, and Zeph have about 1,000 questions about human tactical theory, and I told them you'd be happy to answer them. Did you now? I also may have volunteered you to give a presentation to the other first-year students about cross-species team dynamics. Maya raised an eyebrow. Anything else you've committed me to? Well, Kess said with the musical equivalent of a grin. I told Commander Vex that humans probably have opinions about the current training curriculum and might be willing to suggest improvements. Maya stopped walking and stared at him. Kess, what have you done? I've given you the opportunity to show everyone what humans are really capable of when they stop holding back. Kess replied. Isn't that what you wanted? As they continued down the corridor, Maya thought about her mother's final message and her father's lessons about proving yourself through actions rather than words. She had come to the Academy hoping to demonstrate that humans could fit into galactic society. Instead, she had learned that maybe galactic society needed to adapt to include humans as they actually were. Yes, she said finally. I think that's exactly what I wanted. Behind them, through the transparent walls of the Academy station, the stars shone with the same light that had guided human explorers across Earth's oceans and eventually to the stars themselves. Maya had spent weeks in silence, trying to figure out how to prove that humans belonged among those stars. Now she understood that humans didn't need to prove they belonged. They just needed to be themselves and let the galaxy decide whether it was ready for that kind of partnership. From the conversations she had been having over the past few days, Maya suspected the galaxy was more ready than anyone had expected. The Apex Predator girl had finally found her voice and she was just getting started.